everyone. Welcome to Creepy InQueeries,
a podcast dedicated to all things creepy, spoopy, and true crimey.
With your hosts,
Miss
Kevin
and Edie, your friendly neighborhood queers.
Yeah, 45.
We're 45.
We're 45 in it.
We are 45. Who else is 45? Okay.
Donald J. Trump.
Oh, God damn it. I knew you were going to say it.
It's the only 45 I know.
Your favorite president, Donald Trump. John Cena is 45. Ryan Reynolds is 45. Shakira is 45.
Okay.
Tom Hardy is 45.
Okay.
Orlando Bloom is 45.
Okay.
Do you know 45 is, it's only 10 years older than us.
Fuck
Oh, no,
you.
no. Not for me, boo.
You.
Can't relate.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, a whopping 11 years for you.
Thank you. Every minute counts.
Oh, life. It moves
It can't move at the speed
at
of
the
life.
speed of life.
It needs to slow down. There's too much shit going on.
It's got to slow down. My partner, I think, cracked a code with that joke last week. Because like we've said before, we think about life, it moves at the speed of life all the time.
Yes.
It's plagued
yes, we
us.
do.
That joke has plagued us for 10 years. And he's like, is it like a joke about how like life is like a blink and you'll miss it? Like it moves at the speed of light, but then it moves at the speed of life instead. Like, is that something? And I'm like, I think that might be something. I think this joke is an onion of like a bunch of layers that don't really mean anything. And that's what makes it so impactful and infuriating. Life, it moves at the speed of light.
What is the origination of this? Who
There's
started
a comedian named Josh, last name starts with an H, used to do 10 years ago, was the MC for an excellent weekly free comedy show at a bar called Bar Lubitsch in Los Angeles, a block and a half from our apartment. We would see like crazy comedians there, like Chelsea Peretti, Hannibal Buress, Rob Delaney, Dimitri Martin, Dana Gould, like tons of stuff. And then the MC was this guy who is a great person.
Very peppy.
And very endearing and very peppy. And he had a catchphrase. And the catchphrase was, life, it moves at the speed of life.
I got
and
it.
I would say that so convincingly. I still don't know what it really means. But it stuck with us.
I think it means nothing. As someone on the outside, I'm going to just say, I don't think this has any meaning at all.
Maybe it's nothing.
Have we been trying to look for meaning in a comedian's one-liner all this time?
But then, like, is that not what life is? Searching for meaning in the chaos.
I think he wins
universe?
Because we're sitting here talking about this. I think
10
he wins.
years later.
Yeah, that's
we
chaos
should tweet
magic.
him.
We should, because
my
here's
partner
the thing.
was thinking of like DMing him, like, okay, is this something? Is it speed of light, speed of life? What is it? Is that anything?
We should extend our gratitude for the
and
amazing
he'll be like,
inside
I
joke.
have no idea what you're talking about.
I think he does another show now.
Yes,
at a different, the Formosa. I think he does another because again, we looked it up. We looked it up last week. We looked him up last week. We are obsessed with Josh. We are obsessed with life. It moves at the speed of light.
Well, great, because I think that's it.
That's what's going on in my life. That's my update for the week. Is life it moves at the speed of life? What is it? Speed of light? Speed of life? Josh?
TBD.
We're gonna reach out to Josh.
Yeah, let's reach out to Josh.
We're gonna reach out to Josh.
Maybe we can have him on the pod.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Sure.
Oh my.
That would be an enormous get for me personally. That would be an enormous get.
Are we about to make him our special guest for our 50th episode?
A man we don't know and have never contacted.
Show. No, that's just for us. That's just for us.
I'm gonna ask him to be on the pod.
Oh, yeah. Love to have him on.
Just to talk about life at moves at the speed of life.
I want to know how quickly his life has moved since we've seen him. But enough about him. This is our fucking podcast.
This is our podcast.
That's right.
Miss, what have you been up to this week?
Come on. You know. No, I've been walking to work every day, and it's been delightful because the weather is finally nice. I watched the movie you guys made me watch.
Yes.
Oh, that doesn't sound promising. What was that tone?
It was good.
Kevin, she said that we made her watch.
I watched that little movie
only say
you made me watch.
I only say that because her eyes open, Clockwork Orange style, and made her watch it.
Had no choice.
I'll tell you, there's no chance I would have watched it otherwise.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. What did you think?
I thought it was good. I don't think that's the right answer, though.
That's faint praise, but I'll take it.
Yeah, praise is praise.
Praise is praise. Did it change your life, your outlook? Did it make you feel?
Did it move you at all? Emotionally?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, it didn't change my outlook or anything, but it did. Right. It was,
okay.
I liked it. It felt relevant to my own life, but I thought it was a good movie. I don't like the first half of it.
We're like staring at you.
I don't know what
judgment in our eyes, and you're like, "It's good. I liked it. It was good."
I'm not a movie person. I rarely watch TV or movies, so I don't know what I'm supposed to say. But also, like the first half was just The Matrix, so that was kind of disappointing.
Wow!
God!
Wow!
Oh my God!
There were no hot dog fingers in the fucking Matrix, miss.
Oh, no,
it hurts. Now I know what betrayal feels like, and it feels
I don't understand
like
what's
this,
happening. I really don't.
It was a taste of betrayal. You fucking
don't.
It was the taste of betrayal.
It's not the Matrix. It's different from the Matrix.
I only said the first half. But honestly, I mean, what am I missing? What is it that you wanted me to say?
I don't know.
We wanted you to speak from the heart, and you did. And
yes.
I really liked it. I mean, it was sort of like really real, like real life.
Yeah, it was very real. It was deeply real.
Not a lot of fun, but it was emotional and good.
Well, I'm glad that you saw it, and I'm glad that you thought it was good.
Yes.
I feel like I failed the assignment.
No, you didn't. You
didn't.
Passed with flying colors.
Yes. You did what needed to be done. You spoke your truth.
You spoke your truth.
I liked it. Like, what, you guys are mad. I guess I'll watch it again. I have the rental for a few days. Like, I don't know what I missed.
You didn't miss anything. No, you didn't miss anything.
And I just, like, the ending outside the laundromat was probably, like, my favorite scene with the two of them.
Oh, I loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgeous scene.
So,
cried and cried. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, miss.
I'm dead inside. There's no chance of crying at this point in my life.
Work.
I mean, not unless it's me getting frustrated because I can't find the right words. That's really the only chance you're going to get out of me.
Yeah.
For
and
crying.
I mean, that's cry worthy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's frustration based will make me cry. Emotions will never make me cry.
Oh, that's telling. That's some telling. That's an important puzzle piece in the million-piece puzzle of Miss.
Yeah, and there's like at least 3 handfuls missing from the jigsaw puzzle box.
Now, Kevin, I saw that you might have done something fun this weekend from your Instagram stories.
I did.
What were you up to?
I checked out the Maryland Renaissance Festival this weekend, and it was quite lovely. It was great. And we had 2 people with us that had never been before. They are not of this country. And so it was great for us to have that all experienced together. It was really fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
Give some foreigners a turkey leg. Just give them a giant-ass turkey leg. Make them walk around with it.
Yes. And the funny thing about the Maryland Renaissance Festival, y'all, is that the location that they have it in is a place called Crownsville, Maryland. And
Pun
I
King
just think
loves it.
that's so funny.
Pun King is tickled by Crownsville.
Yes.
And I do have a very small pun in my spoopy story today. It's just a throwaway pun. So just
well,
just
we look
letting
forward
you know.
to it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the warning, Pun King.
Thank you. I always need to make sure.
So what
did either of you watch the movie that I suggested with the Pun King? I don't think so.
No, because I forgot what it was called, and then I didn't watch it. But I know it's on Hulu, and I didn't watch it.
You're dead to me.
I've been in more of a fantasy kind of mode with TV recently. So teen stuff, I
haven't watched anything in a long time, and I watched that damn movie for you.
You did. Oh no.
No, please don't watch it. Please don't. You don't deserve it. It's fine.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no, she's mad.
I'm really not mad.
On a warpath.
I'm really.
Uh-oh.
She's
really
on the warpath.
I was just making a
hardcore war.
No,
Where's this hardcore war? We got the hardcore war. That was my weekend. I had a turkey leg. We had some raspberry wine. We saw some jousting. We did it all. It was fun.
Nice.
And I enjoyed myself.
Oh Lord, you just unlocked another Edie memory.
Oh, a sad story.
Oh, another sad story. It's not that sad. Ooh, that unlocked a sad Renaissance Festival one. A later sad Renaissance Festival one where I third wheeled it with the girl I was in love with and the guy she was fucking all day at a Renaissance Festival.
Who hasn't been there?
I know. But before then, it was 8th grade. I was there with my best friend and her hot goth older sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then her then boyfriend, and they bought us cups of raspberry mead, and that was the first time I ever got drunk.
Wow, that's actually kind of fun.
Ooh.
Yes, and then we were still tipsy when we got dropped off for an 8th grade mixer.
Ooh.
Still in what? Renaissance Festival outfits. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
There's the sad part.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming.
It's the year 2000.
I've heard 0 sad parts. I support it all.
Well, I'm glad that brought that back because that's a great memory to share with us and all of the listeners listening right now.
Listeners. I'm so glad that I have a fake name for this podcast.
Precisely this reason.
Yes.
Yeah,
fake name Esquire.
Look at us doing our 45th episode.
Yes, our John Cena episode.
Our John Cena aged episode. I feel real good about it too. Like I said, I'm excited for my spoopy story, and it is a little shorter, but I think that is good because Edie, you did text us earlier saying you might have a bit of a whopper.
Did. I've got a beefy one, and it's one of my very favorite true crime related stories, and I adore it. So, friends, this is a love story.
Oh.
And it's also a story about standing up to one of America's most intense carceral regimes, the Texas prison system.
Oh. So not really a romance.
So not...
Well, you know.
There might be a little...
It's romantic.
In a hopeless place.
Okay,
that is
so
true.
there is romance.
Oh, yeah, baby.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
I'm really apprehensive about what that means.
This seems really off the books. All right.
Frances Jalet was born in Boston in 1910. She was one of the first women to graduate from Columbia Law School, but she'd gotten married, and at that time, family and career didn't really mix. So Frances worked as a teacher and a typist, then had 5 kids, and set about raising them. One of the first women to graduate Columbia Law School, and you're like, I can type 100 words per minute.
Yeah. That's... Anyway. Dark.
Her husband's got a serious head injury after surviving a plane crash.
Wow.
Yeah, right? He was on a buddy's private plane on a trip to Chicago, and it went down.
Survives
and
a
he
plane
survived
crash at
a
this time?
small plane crash. Yeah.
All right, good for him.
This guy became unpredictable and angry and prone to drink a lot. Very common with serious head injury stuff. And Frances really tried to make it work, but by 1954, the marriage was done.
Fair enough.
In 1959, Frances found a gig as a staff attorney on the New York Law Revision Commission in Ithaca, New York. She was working as a lawyer, finally.
Wow.
Congratulations, Frances.
Yeah.
She held that job for 8 years until her youngest child left the nest. With her kids grown, Frances saw an opportunity to take part in the growing civil rights movement. She snagged a fellowship to recruit talented lawyers to work in poverty law. Frances asked where she was needed the most, so she was sent to Texas.
There's parts of this that are really ringing a bell, and I can't put
You
it
know
together
this
yet.
one, miss.
Do I think I
You know
everything,
this one.
Every time you say something, I'm like,
You know this one. I know that you know this one.
Okay. All right, good.
Fred Cruz, not Ted Cruz.
Not
Ted Cruz. Fred Cruz was born in 1940 and grew up in the segregated Mexican-American barrios in San Antonio. Life there was really tough, and joining a gang was, for a lot of people, the surest chance of survival. And so it was for Fred. By 1961, at 20 years old, Fred started serving a 15-year sentence for allegedly robbing an ice house. While inside, Fred liked to read about philosophy and legal theory, and about yoga and Buddhism. He liked the Buddhist idea that peace of mind didn't come from the external world, but from your own personal perspective on truth and what's real. Fred had to rely on those Buddhist ideas a lot. His external world was the Ellis unit in East Texas, known as the harshest prison in the state. And the harshest place to be in Ellis was the hole. A man could be put in the hole or solitary confinement for the pettiest of infractions. The cell was in complete darkness. Sometimes a man in the hole would get a thin blanket and nothing else. No mattress for the steel bunk, no clothes, no toilet but a hole in the floor. A man in the hole might be fed nothing but 3 slices of bread per day with a full meal twice a week.
Nice.
Just enough to keep you alive.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather you just stop feeding me and we could end it that way.
Yeah.
Like, please, like,
so
I'm
fucking
just
brutal.
Keep your fucking bread, all right?
After a time, a CO might open the outer door to the cell and let some light in from the hallway. That's considered nice. A release from solitary.
Yes, it is.
So wait, like the door can just be open and that's release?
There's
not
2 doors.
Cell. Not to the cell.
There's 2 doors. One more regular door that has like the bars in like a window in it, and then one huge heavy steel door that keeps light and sound out.
Oh, okay, I see.
So the exterior steel door might get opened and some light would get let in.
Okay.
Then that CO might ask the man in the hole how sorry he was.
I'm going to say he's not very at this point.
The man in the hole had to be sorry enough, and he had to be polite enough. If he wasn't, the CO might close the door and leave the man in the hole in darkness once again. Sounds great, right? This is an appropriate punishment for
stealing money.
Right? This isn't for stealing money from the ice house. This is for infractions inside DOC.
While he was inside.
Yeah, and we'll hear a little bit more about what kinds of things might send a person to the hole at this.
I got to tell you, with my personality, I'm never getting out.
I'm in the hole forever.
I'm never getting out.
I'm in the goddamn
There's no
hole
chance
forever.
I'm going to be sorry.
Well, Fred was too often the man in the hole. And what he learned from his books on Buddhism helped him some, but unending silence and darkness isn't something that a person is meant to tolerate. Sometimes he'd panic.
No, it's literal torture.
Yep. Sometimes he'd hope to die. When he wasn't in the hole, Fred started reading textbooks and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and Supreme Court opinions.
I'm surprised they let that in there in Texas.
Interesting that you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Early in his incarceration, Fred wrote court filings in his own case. While Fred's pro se pleadings were always dismissed, pro se meaning for yourself, not
With
represented.
no lawyer.
Okay.
Fred eventually became known as a jailhouse lawyer, and other people in Ellis went to him for help with their own cases.
Mm-hmm.
Very common.
But it was against the rules to help other incarcerated people with legal issues or to keep law books or documents in your cell.
Okay.
Knew it. I knew it. I knew that didn't sound right.
Yeah, it couldn't be so easy. Fred was sent to the hole several times for having and sharing banned materials, including Cochrane's Law Lexicon, Casebook on Criminal Procedures in the Courts of Texas, and the Constitution of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Contraband.
Light reading.
Honestly, if you told me that was what happened now, I would not be surprised. In no way would I be surprised. But
it's fucked. It's fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Fred was punished with time in the hole and with loss of good time credits, weeks and months and years worth. Good time credits are days that are often you're given to somebody in a block when they first enter a prison facility, and like you've got, say, for a sentence of X years, you have Y good time credits that are yours to lose, and they can get taken away from you if you have infractions. In 1967, Fred, now 27 years old, was sent to the hole again. That morning, Fred's work squad got ready to go to the sugarcane fields. A friend offered Fred a seat on a work wagon, but a guard told Fred to get on a different wagon. Why? Doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. And Fred did go to that second work wagon, but as he walked by, he said, "Personally, I'm not particular about which trailer I go to work in." That bit of resistance was enough for punishment.
Fuck.
Punishment, yes. Any little bit of resistance, anything other than yes sir, no sir. There's this push and pull of obedience and resistance in prison that is so intense, especially in Texas, especially
in Texas.
The punishment that was set down for him was shelling 1 gallon of peanuts with his bare hands. A common punishment.
Wow, I feel like that's cruel and unusual.
There's a lot of things that you would think are cruel and unusual.
I mean, that's what I feel.
I know. It's what we feel. What we feel. Yeah, because it's like people's, it takes forever, and people's fingernails and skin just like splits, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
So when the assistant warden gave him that information, he asked the warden to tell him what regulation he'd broken. He said he was entitled to a fair hearing, and he didn't get one. So he said he was refusing to go along with the punishment and wanted to appeal the decision to the prison board. The assistant warden said Fred was free to do that when he was released from solitary.
That's nice. Okay.
So we didn't deny him the opportunity to do anything.
Yeah. So Fred was sent to the hole, and yet another page was added to his already thick folder of offense reports. The new entry was insubordination, refused peanuts.
Boy, if I had a nickel.
If I had a nickel for every time I got sent to the hole for refusing to shell peanuts with my bare fucking hands for no goddamn reason. Much of Fred's file was bullshit like this. Unsatisfactory work, creating a disturbance, impudence, refusal to work, disobeying a direct order, disrespectful attitude, insubordination, insubordination, insubordination. In the summer of 1967, Frances packed up her car and drove to Austin to work at the Legal Aid and Defender Society of Travis County. She was 56. A few days after she arrived, the Austin American-Statesman ran a profile on this weird lady who moved from the East Coast to Texas to represent poorer people.
What a joke.
With the poors.
What a fucking joke. The story's writer called her Portia for the Poor. Portia was a main character in Shakespeare's play The Merchant of Venice. a rich noblewoman who at one point in the play dresses like a man and tricks everyone into believing that she's a real lawyer.
Cute.
Much like Murphy Brown.
Much like Murphy Brown. Ooh, don't remind Dan Quayle about Murphy Brown. Dan Quayle was so mad about Murphy Brown. Ooh, no, Murphy Brown.
Was it tomatoes or potatoes?
It was potato.
Potato.
He couldn't spell potato.
And
he put an E at the end. And that was enough for Dan Quayle to get, like, absolutely dragged.
I want those days again where you
never
literally couldn't, like, if you misspelled the word potato, that was enough to end your political career.
We'll never have them again. They're never
Kids
coming back.
these days will have no idea.
They have no idea. They don't know about the Dean Scream. They don't know about it.
No.
A week after she arrived in Austin, Frances got a letter from a man named Fred Cruz. Fred had read the article about Frances and asked if she could help him with his case. Frances had never been inside a prison. She'd never handled a criminal case or any kind of litigation. But she decided to go on her own time, and a few weeks later, she drove the 160 miles to meet Fred. Their first conversation lasted about an hour. That night, Fred wrote down everything he could remember about their meeting. Fred left an impression on Frances, too. In a letter, she described Fred as an intelligent young man who has had a hard time. I find he has courage also. Her private notes revealed a little bit more.
I was going to say, is this the romance?
Fred Cruz is handsome, she wrote.
Ooh.
He can think, he can persuade, he can write. It didn't take much to arouse my interest in joining in with him.
Arouse.
Peculiar choice of word, lady.
Look, Stella's getting her groove back.
I'm all for it.
The day Frances arrived at Ellis, the director of the entire Texas Department of Corrections was visiting, a guy named George Beto. Frances was invited to meet with Beto and the warden at Ellis, Carl McAdams. McAdams had a reputation for being brutal. Apparently, this guy could silently walk up to an incarcerated man and knock him down with a roundhouse kick to the head.
Well, that's rude.
Fun! How'd he practice that one?
On a bunch of incarcerated people.
Oh!
Beto was a minister and an avid hunter who liked to hold himself out as an enlightened guy who really cared about the people imprisoned in his system. They're always ministers,
pastors.
He's a man of God.
Just awful. Yeah. Being a man of God lets you be a devil in this country.
Interesting that you say that. Because Beto was popular among Texas lawmakers, particularly because he saved the Department of Corrections so much money.
That benefits everyone, I bet.
See, much of the land that the department controlled was farmland. The system had like 15,000 beef and dairy cattle, 17,000 hogs, 112,000 chickens. And incarcerated people worked all that land. They grew cotton, more than 3,500 bales a year, each weighing 500 pounds.
Jeez.
They processed it and spun it into cloth, which was then sent to the women's prison, where prisoners there sewed it into linens and the white uniforms that all inmates wore.
Oh, I see.
Well, at least the gender roles are firmly intact in jail.
Firmly in fucking place. You can't make the male prisoners sew clothes. That's just emasculating.
No. Yeah.
Prisoners built the stone walls and fences that confined them. So Beto was running his own little country, ruling over people he incarcerated and enslaved. Because remember, folks inside
slavery.
America and without, the 13th Amendment that was adopted in 1865 abolished slavery in the United States except as a punishment for crime. So from then until well after World War II, Texas just switched out enslaved people for incarcerated people and kept on picking cotton.
Mm-hmm.
By the mid-60s, federal courts in other states were starting to hear prisoners' rights cases about this kind of treatment. But federal judges in Texas were still very hands-off. They kept finding that prison officials had super broad discretion to run their facilities the way they saw fit.
Perfect.
When Beto first met, it couldn't be better. It was great. It was a really good choice. Just like let him the courts are
hands
like, well,
off.
these guys.
Listen, I'm not a micromanager. I'm a macro manager.
It's like, oh, these guys are the experts. That's really what they're saying.
But
like,
yes,
these prison officials are the experts. Who are we to impose what constitutional requirements we should have on them?
Who are we, the courts, to decide?
Who are we, the federal courts, to decide what is and isn't constitutional? So when Beto and Frances first met, Beto warned her about how often inmates tried to con people from the outside and said that she should particularly watch out for a guy named Fred Cruz. But Frances was undeterred. She and Fred began corresponding several times a week. In December 1967, Fred was back in solitary.
Back, baby!
Yep, he's back. A guard accused him of disobeying an order not to share Buddhist religious materials with other inmates. It seems fucked up, right? Of all of the amendments that we have to the Constitution, the numero uno one
is religious
freedom of religion.
Yeah.
When Fred was let out, the warden, McAdams, came to personally warn him that if he kept writing people about matters that didn't pertain to his case, he would be put in solitary indefinitely for agitating the other prisoners. This might be a good time to remind you that all ingoing and outgoing mail was read and censored. So they knew Fred and Frances were talking. McAdams told Fred he was thinking about cutting off all visits from that woman lawyer.
Good.
Yeah, great. By early 1968, Frances and Fred wrote each other almost every day, and she drove to visit him as often as she could. Frances was becoming furious at Fred's treatment at Ellis. In the 1960s, prisoners in other states had started to petition federal courts for more constitutional protections. But at Ellis, Cruz and others continued to be punished, including with solitary, for sharing their religious beliefs, even though in other states similar cases had been brought and the incarcerated people had won.
States' rights.
States' fucking rights. I mean, it's complicated. States' rights versus federal government right. It's very complicated. I have a lot of feelings. Fred told some other prisoners about Frances, and soon she was meeting with a couple of other inmates at Ellis. Based on her interviews with them, Frances wrote a 15-page document she called the Ellis Report. She wrote, "The prisoners confined in the Texas Department of Corrections, most especially on the Ellis unit, are deprived of their constitutional rights and subjected to a pattern of repression, harassment, and even torture that is shocking. Through abusive practices based on brutality and dehumanization, these inmates live in constant fear." Frances documented the stories that she heard from prisoners. She wrote about routine beatings with fists, baseball bats, brass knuckles, and blackjacks.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. She also wrote about people called building tenders. These were incarcerated people who were allowed to keep weapons so long as they were willing to use them against other prisoners when COs ordered them to.
Oh.
What an interesting and dangerous step for the COs to take.
Yeah. Building tenders were really powerful people inside.
I'm sure.
Frances wrote, "Building tenders are henchmen of the establishment and have authority to harass, intimidate, and even to beat and possibly kill prisoners."
So, goons.
Exactly.
Got it.
Like you've got your own kind of
secret police.
Yeah,
not so
like
secret police,
street fighting cause for this kind of authoritarian.
They're on the beat.
Regime.
They're the beat cops of the prison.
Exactly, whose only purpose is to harass, intimidate, and dole out violence.
Good.
Frances sent copies of the Ellis Report to state agencies and civil rights groups, so it couldn't have taken long before Beto caught wind of it. He knew Frances had been declaring war on the Texas prison system. So in the spring of '68, Beto decided it was time to go on the offensive. He made a bunch of calls, got her fired from the legal aid office in Austin, then started trouble at her new job at a poverty law center in Dallas. In a memo, Frances's new boss in Dallas ordered her to no longer assist prisoners and to stop, quote, attacking the policies of the Texas prison system.
Those poor policies.
Those poor policies.
Those poor innocent policies.
Will no one think of the policies? Beto, of course, was sent a copy of that memo, and he used it to ban her from his prisons. He told his warden to remove Frances from approved visiting and correspondence lists and cut her off completely from her clients. For weeks. When Frances fought back, her new boss fired her on Christmas Eve. For what? Insubordination.
That's cold.
It's ice fucking cold. It's ice cold.
This is the Poverty Law Center.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. In the pocket of Beto from the Department of Corrections. It's
so
fucked.
good.
It's
fucked.
So
good.
So weeks went by and Frances couldn't write to or visit her clients. She learned through kind of the prison grapevine that officials were moving her 3 clients between solitary and segregated isolation and pressuring at least one of them to sign papers accusing her of inciting violence. And she also learned that Beto and McAdams were tracking her movements. It's fucked up, dudes.
Yes, it is.
Eventually, she was allowed to visit her clients again, but all 3 were in terrible shape after having been sent in and out of solitary for so long. In 1969, Frances helped Fred and another client, Novak, write and file a lawsuit challenging both the rule barring prisoners from helping each other with legal matters and the use of solitary confinement as punishment for prisoners sharing legal advice. They were finally going to challenge Beto and the prison system in federal district court. Frances didn't have any trial experience herself, so she partnered up with an NAACP Legal Defense Fund lawyer who had read the Ellis report, and he flew out from San Francisco to help her interview witnesses and prepare for trial. In December 1969, the case came to trial in Houston. That in October, the ruling came down. Fred and Novak had lost. The judge ruled that prisoners had no need to help each other in legal matters because the year before, the Department of Corrections had hired an attorney. One attorney for 14,000 inmates.
Nobody's right to anything has been denied.
No, they've got access to
They have
an attorney.
A resource.
They have
Absolutely.
an attorney. Why do they need to help each other? As for solitary being a cruel and unusual punishment for prisoners helping each other with legal matters, the judge decided that prison officials should have broad discretion in picking disciplinary measures.
Yes.
Hands
You can't
off.
tell parents how to raise their kids, and you can't tell wardens not to beat their prisoners.
Nope.
Or put them in solitary confinement.
Fish gotta swim.
Fish gotta swim.
Bird gotta fly.
Here's what the judge wrote. Rather than define arbitrary requirements, we rely on the good faith of Dr. Beto and other prison officials to affect the spirit of the Constitution. It is clear to the court from the evidence that the Texas Department of Corrections is an outstanding institution in every respect.
So good.
That's funny. Tell another.
Yeah.
The court is further convinced that Dr. George J. Beto, director, is a fair, kind, and just man and an excellent administrator.
Good.
Well, I did say tell another.
You told me to tell another, and I delivered. What the fucking fuck?
I mean, it's just business as usual. They gave them their day in court.
Yeah, you know, however
That's
meaningful that was.
Doesn't matter. They got it.
Yeah, they got it.
So now 1971 is beginning, and Frances and Fred had little to show for their 3-year work partnership. But Frances knew that civil rights work is a long game. And Frances was growing closer and closer to Fred. That spring, she wrote Fred's mother, "I know how deeply you love your son. I have grown to love him also."
Oh, all right.
But prison officials continued to make life difficult. When Frances would try to go to Ellis, prison officials would stonewall her in all kinds of ways. Frances documented every time. Warden McAdams had been transferred from Ellis to another prison, but the new boss, a guy named Robert Cousins, was just as harsh. One day, a guard yelled at Fred when Fred tried to put his shoes on in the hallway. Not being allowed to put his shoes on in the hallway seemed foolish to Fred, and he said so. So Warden Cousins was called to the scene and told Fred he was going into solitary until he changed his attitude.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I love Fred. I am Fred. I can't.
Fred rules.
I wouldn't be able to just, like, if somebody's like, you can't change your shoes in the hallway, I'd be like, you have to give me a reason. That doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense. Well, during this conversation, Cousins grabbed Fred by the throat and pushed him up against a wall. And he said, I'm tired of putting up with you, and I'm tired of that woman coming down to see you. You better tell her and those N-word loving lawyers, they better hurry up and get you out of here or learn to keep my name out of their goddamn mouth. Because if they don't, I'm going to send you out in a pine box. Somebody should have killed you a long time ago.
Nice.
Wow. That's all I have to say.
Fred was then thrown naked into the hole again.
Fuck.
Stuff's great. Stuff is great. Even better, Frances began to get word that prison officials had started a campaign to turn her clients against her, now numbering a few dozen. Over time, more and more people were reaching out to Frances for help. Officials would call her clients in one by one to threaten them to fire that lady lawyer. And some did. Frances would show up at Ellis and be told that certain clients didn't want to see her anymore. And before long, she started getting letters from prisoners dismissing her help and denigrating her character. Donald Locke, a guy she had met only once and didn't represent, wrote to prison officials and the attorney general that Frances ordered 3 beatings that he had taken.
So I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that these letters were not written willingly.
Ding, 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 ding.
Could there have been a little duress?
Maybe just a touch.
Some light duress.
Maybe just a song of duress.
Maybe just a touch.
maybe just a touch. Maybe just a slap.
He didn't punch. It was just a touch. Yeah.
It was just a roundhouse kick to the face.
NBD.
In the fall of 1971, Freddie Dreyer, a building tender, one of the kind of goons, filed a lawsuit alleging that Frances and her clients were conspiring to start revolts in prisons.
Ooh.
And in 1971, this would be a big deal. This is around the time that Attica was happening. So there was a whole lot of prison revolt going on. So officials and courts were really wary of stuff like this. Dreyer's suit claimed that Frances was interfering with the prison's orderly operation, causing a breakdown in morale, teaching revolutionary ideas, and threatening prison security by helping a small group of lazy, agitating troublemakers.
How high was that morale, though?
Not high. We were all just like clicking our heels and greeting the day with joy until Frances started telling us that maybe prison's not so great. Soon another building tender, a guy named Robert Slayman, filed another suit with
I don't like that
suspiciously similar language. Yeah, Slayman, not great.
Not this story.
What's he in for?
Locke, the guy who had written about Frances ordering 3 beatings, filed a third suit, and he got promoted to trustee, which is the second most powerful role that an incarcerated person could have behind building tender. So that was a kind of a tit-for-tat situation.
Yeah, that's interesting evidence.
Frances was sure that Beto was behind it all. And she assumed that the lawsuits would be dismissed, not just because the allegations weren't true, but because they were legally impossible. Because the prisoners were suing her under a law that protected people from abuse at the hands of state officials. And Frances wasn't a state official.
Aha.
But the judge, Carl Bew, consolidated the 3 suits into one and allowed them to go forward.
Wow.
And then Beto decided for the second time to ban Frances from his prisons. At this point, Frances represented close to 50 people.
1963, that whole problematic Sixth Amendment right to an attorney is not really bothering anybody, I guess.
Yeah, well, this is 67, and you would, at this point, Gideon versus Wainwright was decided, but these are folks who are already incarcerated and serving sentences. Right.
No, I know.
So,
I just
it's but
interesting point.
It is an interesting because it's a very interesting time for
the early 60s, especially.
Like, yes.
And this is
when we get Miranda rights. This is when you get your right to an attorney.
This is fall of 1971. Beto wasn't done. About 24 people, including Fred, had stayed loyal to Frances despite all of the pressure to turn against her. So Beto shipped them all to another prison called the Wynn Unit. Ellis might have been known as brutal and violent, but the Wynn Unit was also. And its warden had been replaced by none other than Warden McAdams, who himself brought his most vicious building tenders to Wynn along with him. So Frances's clients were put together on the same tier, isolated from the rest of the inmates, eating at different times from them. They had no access to recreational activity or any programming courses. They worked 6 days a week and were given the most terrible assignments like shoveling manure. They were also heavily medicated. Prison doctors were prescribing them powerful psychoactive drugs like Thorazine and Librium.
Jesus.
This was especially no good for Fred because before his incarceration, he had a serious addiction to heroin.
Oh, good.
Great.
Yeah, that'll help.
Grouping all of Frances's clients in the same cell block would turn out to be a big fucking mistake. Big mistake.
Yeah, it was really dumb.
Huge. Because Frances had taught them all about the law and how to use it to help themselves. So her clients started to work together. Within 2 weeks of being put together at Wynn, Frances's clients were drafting a lawsuit. They were suing Beto personally for denying them their constitutional rights by banning Frances from the prison and for punishing their attempts to access the court system. But this time, they were naming Frances as a plaintiff too.
Nice.
As 1971 ended, a couple of good things happened. The appeal of Fred and Novak's case was heard. The Fifth Circuit ruled that the Department of Corrections failed to provide prisoners adequate access to legal services, and therefore prisoners should not be punished for helping one another.
Good.
The court added that any loss of good time suffered for violating that unlawful regulation had to be restored.
Good.
The main event was still to come in 1972. So here we've got the two dueling lawsuits. First is the suits from the building tenders and Locke accusing Frances of fomenting revolt. And next, Frances and her client's suit against Beto. And one guy, Judge Bew, was going to preside in both cases. And while Frances and Fred waited for the trials to start, Fred was given back the good time that he had lost pursuant to that appeal decision. And it turned out that Fred was overdue for release. So on March 9th, 1972, he walked out of the Department of Corrections for the last time.
Wow. Nice.
Now that Fred was free, he and Frances could admit that they'd fallen in love. A month later, days before the start of the trial against Frances, they drove across the border to a small town in Mexico and got married.
Aww.
Frances was 61 and Fred was 32.
Good for
fucking
her.
work.
Good for Frances. Good for Frances. And also, Fred is hot.
Is
Fred,
he?
Fred is hot.
I did look up pictures as you were talking.
Fred is hot. And,
Yeah,
you know,
he's
Frances is hot, too.
Yeah.
Frances looks
Both
great.
of them can get it. And they can get it together.
Oh, no,
And
he
they got
is.
He's hot.
Oh, here's the. Oh, no, she's cute.
Yeah,
Good
she's
for
very
them.
cute. She's very cute.
Oh, good for them. All
So
right.
the trial begins. And then Robert Slayman, one of the three people who were suing Frances, was released on day 2 of the trial, probably a reward for him suing in the first place. And after that, Slayman was in the fucking wind. He got his, and he didn't care about the trial anymore, and he wasn't showing up. Perfect. Respect.
Might be the smartest
respect.
person so far.
Respect for Slayman. Absolute respect. Fucking get out of there.
Do what you need to do to survive and
So
get out.
Dreyer and Locke, the other two who were suing Frances, did play their parts, at least for a while. And so did McAdams and Beto. And when it came time for Frances to present her defense case, she went all out. For nearly a month, her lawyers called dozens of current and former incarcerated people to talk about what they saw and lived in the Department of Corrections. And after a few weeks of this testimony, Locke, one of the guys suing Frances, did something remarkable. He let Frances's lawyers know that he wanted to take the stand again, this time as a defense witness.
Ooh.
Wow.
Strange twist of fate.
He got into the witness box. His hands were shaking, and he started to cry.
Oh my God.
He said,
literally terrified.
"It's all a lie. Ms. Jalet has done nothing. She's tried to help me. She's tried to help the entire prison population. He testified that he'd been pressured to file the suit and identified McAdams as one of the officials who coerced him to do it.
Nice. Wow.
Sick. Super brave, super amazing.
Yeah.
Way to go, Locke. Absolutely. You know, I get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fred, meanwhile, was having trouble adjusting to life outside the walls.
Yeah.
One morning, a few weeks into the trial, he bought a bottle of bourbon and started drinking. And he didn't make it to court that day. Other substances might have been involved that day because by that night, he was having trouble breathing and had to go to the hospital. And then he was released. Finally, after 6 weeks and more than 60 witnesses, 47 of them incarcerated people, the trial was over. Judge Bew issued his decision. He found no evidence of conspiracy between Frances or any of her clients. He dismissed the case. Frances had won. A month later, Beto retired as the head of the Texas Department of Corrections. But Frances's lawsuit against him for keeping her from her clients was up next.
Drag them.
That case went forward, and again, they won. Judge Bew ruled that Beto's actions in barring Frances from visiting her clients and punishing those prisoners for trying to access the courts had infringed on both her rights and theirs. This was the first time that Texas prisoners won a personal lawsuit against the head of the Department of Corrections.
Yay.
Judge Bew said when issuing his ruling, "It is clear that public and legal scrutiny of the prison system is underway in the country." And he was right. The suits that Fred and Frances and the others started would ultimately grow into a case that would topple the status quo in Texas. A massive class action lawsuit was underway. Eventually, in December 1980, after a trial with 349 witnesses and 1,530 exhibits, a federal judge ruled that the Texas Department of Corrections was operating in a fundamentally unconstitutional way.
Wow. That's incredible.
Incredible. Frances represented incarcerated people for another decade. She and Fred moved to Chicago, and in 1976, they took a year-long trip to Spain, where they took classes at the University of Seville.
That's really nice.
It's really fucking nice, right?
Well, until, whatever you're about to say.
Life outside was still really hard for Fred.
Yeah.
Because within prison walls, he'd become famous. He'd become a person that other people looked up to. He was also needed. He was needed.
Right. He had a purpose.
Yes. He'd become an important person. And on the outside, he was just another brown guy with no degrees and a felony record.
Yeah.
And over time, addiction sunk its claws back into Fred. Frances supported him for years. She tried to get him work that made him feel fulfilled, and she sent him to rehab facilities a few times. But circumstances being what they were, Fred and Frances divorced in 1978. Fred went on to remarry and have a daughter. He named her Frances.
Oh.
Did
Fred
his
Cruz.
wife know that? Did his wife know that at the time?
I don't know.
That's a fun secret to find out later.
Fred Cruz died of a drug overdose in 1987 at just 47 years old.
That sucks.
Yeah.
A few years before, he'd written to Frances, "It's so difficult to gather my thoughts that I seldom write anymore. The only certainty that remains unchanged are my feelings for you. They grow with the passage of time, strengthening the respect created at the beginning when we lived in different worlds, pure against the tides that engulfed us later." Frances died in 1994 at the age of 84. Before she died, she wrote an essay for the Columbia Law School Observer about her time in Texas. She wrote that her work with Fred and the others has meant more to me than anything I have ever done. It was the most draining, the most exciting, the most rewarding of undertakings. And that's the story of Frances, Jalet, and Fred Cruz. It's one of my favorite stories of all time.
I have heard that. You're right. I have.
It's beautiful.
There's a lot of great things in that story, and a lot of shitty things, of course, too.
Yeah, big time.
Like,
sure.
Like, damn. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I had never heard of them. And look at them. They changed the goddamn.
They changed shit for everyone.
They did. It
For
wasn't just
everyone.
Texas.
For
It was,
everyone.
you know, it was at the time when these things, it was kind of a watershed, you know, period of around 15 to 20 years for, you know, positive reforms to the criminal legal system.
Don't worry, the 90s came along and really
the 90s
gutted
for
any good
sure
progress.
came along. The 80s and 90s came and it was very bad.
And it was gutted again.
Yeah. Those will be subjects of future Edie true crime stories. But for now, we'll have a very lovely and bittersweet story of two people who fell in love with each other's minds and each other's compassion. And it was a beautiful time, even if it ended.
Yeah, they really helped
didn't
each
have
other
the
out in a
happiest
lot of
ending.
ways. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's life.
It's
honestly.
life. It moves at the speed of life.
All right.
You are absolutely right.
All right. I'm going to just have to give you guys this one.
Well, my spoopy story is going to make things a little different. Yeah, no, actually a little different. There's no romance in it.
What?
I'm sorry
We're not
to
fucking
say.
any cryptids?
No.
No aliens either?
I want to smush.
No aliens either. So there's no romance, no aliens. There's also no death, though.
Okay.
Well, isn't that a twist?
Twist?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so no ghosties?
This is a ghosty story, though.
Ghosties!
We got a ghosty.
Oh, I love a ghost story. Yay!
Yep. We got a ghosty. So come with me in your minds to the southeastern part of the state of Alabama.
All right. No, I don't want to, but I will.
I don't want to go to South Alabama.
I know. I know. But please.
Sorry, listeners in South Alabama. We love you.
Sorry, we love you.
We hope you're okay.
So there we are, southeastern part of Alabama. We are headed to Henry County, which borders Georgia's southwestern border.
Okay.
In Henry County, there is a city by the name of Abbeville. Abbeville, Alabama, is a sleepy town with a population of 2,300 and is known for probably only two things.
Good.
One, on many lists of U.S. cities and towns, you'll find Abbeville, Alabama, usually listed first alphabetically.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. Look at them.
Right? That's what they're known for. And number two, it is home to a terrifying ghost who stalks its streets in search of terror. And her name is Huggin Molly.
Huggin Molly. She's out in the streets, hugging your girl, taking your man. All right.
Huggin
Hide your kids. Hide your wife.
Hide your kids. Hide your wife.
That's exactly what it is.
So Huggin Molly is a terrifying figure in Abbeville lore. And like many small town stories, her origins, her intentions, her goals, and her looks are all heavily debated. But what is definitely agreed on is Huggin Molly's grasp over the town of Abbeville.
Yeah, she's hugged them all.
Hugged them all. At the start of the 1900s, tragedy struck this small city when an arsonist basically burned down the entire town.
It's a great start.
It's a great start. And a lot of people think around this time is when the legend of Huggin Molly took form.
Okay. I'm sorry, what year is this? Where are we?
In the early 1900s.
Early 1900s, okay.
Yep. The local legend tells of a very tall, most say around 7 feet tall, figure.
It's too tall.
That starts walking around the streets in all black garb.
Okay.
Has a long black cloak, huge brimmed black hat. She has this like witch-like status around her in town.
Okay.
Because the ghostly figure that roams the streets is looking for her favorite thing. She's on the hunt for children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Especially children who are not home before dark.
Oh my gosh, listen to your ma and your pa, kids. Otherwise,
watch for the street lights.
This hot 7 foot tall witch who I'm imagining being played by
lady.
my love, Elizabeth Debicki, who in real life is like 6'3".
Oh, yeah,
She'll get you. But like, I'll stay out waiting for her. I want it too bad. I'll never be haunted because I want it too bad. wait on the curb with like a lunchbox. Please get me.
You want a snack?
Like with a sign like your limo driver at the airport. Huggin' Molly?
Yes.
Huggin' Molly?
Huggin' Molly?
Huggin' Molly? That's a nice hat. Huggin' Molly?
So if children wandered the streets at night in Abbeville, she enjoys nothing more than following them around as her black skirt and cloak drag along behind her. And then once she finds a child, she then pursues them. And the reason why she's called Huggin' Molly is that she attacks them with a very tight hug while she screams loudly in their ears.
Good.
Okay, I could do without the second part. But, I like a firm hug.
I love a tight
hug.
pressure. I love a tight pressure hug. I'm not into loud noises in my face.
No.
I see. I also imagine her breath would stink, but that did not come up in my research.
Bad. I mean, it's the 1900s and she's like a 100-year-old witch. So.
Right. So the majority of stories revolve around hugging Molly doing that and nothing more. Just like hugging a kid, screaming at them, terrifying them.
She doesn't take them. She just hugs them and screams in their ear and is just like, go on home, kid.
Like, that would be very scary in the kid's defense. It would be very scary.
Yeah,
if
think
that
about
happened.
that. A 7-foot tall dark figure. Lady.
But also kind of funny.
So it's like, so what happened? Did she like take you anywhere? No, she just gave me a bear hug and just yelled bloody murder in my fucking ears.
As I was reading the story about her, I was picturing her kind of giving a noise like Mort did from our Jibber Jabber episode. Again, terrifying. There's also one or two accounts of Huggin' Molly where people have claimed that she has hugged to death, but that has not really been the consensus.
It's a little bit Lenny with the bunnies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe she just didn't mean it.
Oh no, she just hugged too hard.
She loved them too much.
Gonna grow me some rabbits as big as your head.
God damn it. God damn it.
So
sympathy for the devil.
Yeah. No one knows who the identity of Huggin' Molly had been in waking life. Some think she is someone who had lost her own child in life and she's grossly not dealing with it healthily in her afterlife.
Mama's not coping.
Mama's not coping. Other accounts think that she was murdered in her life and she was trying to fulfill something or unfinished business or try to warn someone.
My unfinished business is I want to hug every kid.
Right. Michael Jackson. Yeah. Here's an account from Mac Gregory, who was born in the year 1901, who at the time of his encounter was a teenager. Mac was walking home late one night from a friend's house.
The accent.
He had heard something brushing along the sidewalk behind him.
You sound like Leslie Jordan.
I was just going to say sound like Reba.
Well. Karen Walker as I live and drink.
You do a great Leslie Jordan.
Thank you.
Honestly, now you have to do it.
I'm going to do it. I'm committing. He had heard something brushing along the sidewalk behind him. He turned and he saw a dark figure standing just outside of the reach of the streetlight. The figure was tall and either wearing a cloak or a dress, but he did not look long enough to take in the details. He noticed the figure was matching his pace, but slightly faster to close the gap. He would speed up and he would slow down, and every time, so did the figure. Fully freaked out, Mac was roughly a block from his home, and he took off into a dead sprint. No pun intended.
Pun King, there we go.
Wait, was that Pun King,
that was the foretold
pun?
It was
Chekhov's
pun. You show us there's going to be a pun. You pull the trigger on the pun at the end. Yes. Pun King. This is why you are crowned.
Nerd jokes, Pun King. We got it.
So we got Mac running. He hurdles over his front porch steps and throws open the door, and he makes it safely inside. Panting heavily, he ran over to the window to see if Huggin' Molly was still outside. And lo and behold, he did see her walk past his window slowly. But she wasn't looking for him, nor was she looking to get into his house. It was as if she had forgotten all about that kid, Mac, that she was just chasing. And it was as if that she was already searching for another person to hug, like that.
If I'm that kid, I'm like, oh, well, fuck me, I guess, Molly.
Well, that was
like,
a freebie.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
So the inside. So you just got to get inside.
You got to get inside your home.
And she's got like a very flighty sort of focus.
I think she has
Maybe
the attention span of a goldfish. Yeah.
I think she's got ADHD because she doesn't have the working memory, so she forgets what she's doing as she's doing
it. But
also
then she remembers,
like
I've got to hug a kid.
But also, listeners, please remember, we are not psychiatric professionals. No. We are not.
We just have psychiatric problems.
Yes.
We have a lot of those.
So we're not.
I'm not a psychiatrist, but I've
Molly,
seen one since I was 9.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah. That's like Leslie Knope when she goes on trial. She's like, I've seen every episode of Law and Order, and it's paying off big time.
Law and Order's full of lies. People don't watch Law and Order. There's going to be a Edie true crime story about how Law and Order has melted the brains of every American.
Fuck you, Mike Wolf.
Absolutely, but it is entertaining. It is not a correct representation of the legal process.
Yeah. But back to Huggin' Molly, y'all.
Back to Huggin' Molly.
Abbeville parents for generations have used Huggin' Molly as a way to get their kids in line.
Yeah.
You would hear parents all the time say, like, you better be home before dark or else Huggin' Molly will get you, and I won't be able to stop her. God, which is like,
how can you stop her? She's a 7-foot
God, I'll never sleep again. Thanks, Mom.
Correct. Thanks. It's like your general traumatic scarring that may shape your kids' ideas of terror, darkness, curfews for the rest of their life. Tall women, even.
We just had to look out for streetlights, and we just had to worry about Mom yelling.
Yes.
My mother used to tell me when I misbehaved that she would sell me to a slur for the Romany people.
That is layered.
It is layered. It is racist.
Layered.
That's also a very Italian-American thing because Fia had at least 3 references of that nature in the Golden Girls.
In the Golden Girls, yeah, for sure.
So weirdly, I also found out that Abbeville has another ghostly woman in black that is also said to haunt the streets, but she's a different entity entirely.
Maybe
not
they're
connected
friends.
to Huggin' Molly.
Maybe they're friends.
Oh,
maybe they live
maybe they're
together.
ghost
Maybe
lovers.
they're lovers.
Oh no, that's exactly what they are.
Maybe they have like a
ghost
ladies
lovers.
who lunch and ladies who haunt, kind of ladies auxiliary.
Ladies who haunt.
Lovers.
I could see that.
No, lovers who haunt.
But Abbeville leans in hard to the Huggin' Molly lore. They even have, as of 2006, they even have a restaurant named Huggin' Molly's. And that's been,
okay.
Oh yeah. And
I'm not
What do they serve?
They've been serving ghoulish dishes that are connected to them, but it's in a 50s style vibe.
Okay. So like a diner?
Yeah, and I think they have something like screaming fries or something like that.
Still
They have
open.
things like that.
Listen, if we're ever in
Abbeville.
We're ever in southeastern Alabama,
Lord help us.
then we will go to this Huggin' Molly's. I would actually like to go if I'm going to be in the state.
Their chicken fingers are called Molly's fingers.
Ooh.
They have Screamin' Chicken Supreme.
That's it.
Oh, that sounds good. Ooh, is it?
It's
that'd
the
be spicy.
The theming in the menu. I'm gonna give it like a C. There's some things are themed, and then some things are not themed. Do better, Huggin' Molly's.
It's been on. Yeah, it's almost 15 years now. I think almost. So good for them.
Your mouth.
I know. God, I know.
That's not possible.
But if we're ever found to be wandering the streets after, I guess, our curfew in Abbeville, Alabama, just beware the shadows and make sure you have your route home because you might come across Huggin' Molly.
Huggin' Molly.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now we're too old for Huggin' Molly.
I know she has no use.
A fucking curfew.
We don't have.
Now I wonder if it's just kids missing curfew or anyone missing curfew. Because there's going to be moments
like, hey,
where
your parole officer says that you have to answer the phone at 7 p.m. If you don't, not only are you going to get a violation of probation, but Huggin' Molly is going to get you to death.
And I can't do anything about it.
Can you imagine the next lawsuit that comes up is being threatened with ghosts?
I'm sorry, Judge. I didn't come to my violation of probation hearing because I was kidnapped by Huggin Molly.
Yeah, that's the only time I can think of an adult with a curfew.
But Huggin Molly.
Oh, I love Huggin
Molly.
Molly.
Oh, that's great.
I love Huggin Molly.
I love Huggin
Thank
Molly.
you.
She's cute.
She's like,
she's cute.
She's like, she reminds me almost of the American version of the witch in Hansel and Gretel. Like the way she like chooses children and lures them and stuff.
Yeah, I guess like minus the eating them.
Minus the eating.
Them, she just wanted
to hug them.
She's just a hugger. She's just a hugger. And in today's society, it's real hard for a hugger. You know, you can't just walk up to people, especially kids, and just hug them.
In this post-COVID world,
that's a crime.
She better wear a mask when she hugs and screams.
Well, Miss, I hope you enjoyed both of these stories
I
today.
absolutely did.
Our proxy audience.
Yeah, I have for Edie's story, I have a vague feeling we went over that whole timeline in my Crim Pro class.
Maybe.
That would be cool.
Yeah, no, I had a really cool, I really liked my Crim Pro professor. So I really think that's where I heard of it because I've never researched Francis before, but I knew that story. So I'm pretty sure we went over it. But anyway, I really love that story. And I'm going to try and get in with Huggin Molly.
Absolutely.
See if she needs
my worst Wednesday night, I'll tell you.
No, see if she needs some help scaring kids.
We all just need free hugs. And she's just out there giving free hugs. She just didn't bring her sign.
I got a lot of rage. I could scream in someone's ear if they needed it. So.
And fuck them kids, you know?
Fuck them kids. Not listening to their parents.
Yeah,
you weren't home.
All right, y'all. If you also liked this episode, feel free to let us know. You can give us a rate or review wherever you're listening to the show, or you can send us an email at creepyinquiriespod@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on social media at creepyinquiriespod. And if you're interested in our sources and how we put this together, our sources are on our website, creepyinquiriespod.com.
And when you rate us 5 stars, or I will hug you and each one of your kids as hard as I possibly fucking can.
But instead of screaming, what are you going to say to them? Are you going to read like your car's extended warranty, or are you going to...
We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
No! Hell is talking to a telemarketer! But all right, y'all. Until next time,